fully licensed by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency to carry passengers. We carry on board all of the required emergency equipment, including life rings on the outside railings of the upper deck, orange life floats and self-inflating life rafts on the upper deck. Life jackets are in clearly marked boxes spread evenly around the boat. And in the unlikely event of any emergency, please remain calm on our cruise. Today is over to our left-hand side, the large red brick building on the hillside. That's the Britannia Royal Naval College. The construction of this building started in 1902 and it was completed and opened for business in 1905. This replaced family have spent time here at the college, including King Charles III, then Prince Charles IV, and his father, the late Prince Philip. He was a young lieutenant here in 1939 when he first encountered a young Princess Elizabeth. And of course they would go on to get married several years later. So to travel that very short distance from one side of the river to the other will be a 25-mile drive through Totnes, and that will give you the perfect opportunity to practice all of the nautical swear words that you've learned in the area. Mooring Boys is known as the nursery. This is where the cadets do a lot of their boat handling practice. Got two of the grey training vessels on the pontoon just slightly ahead on the left-hand side. Now these are the Bahana class training boats. They have 8 of these here at the college. We've only had them for about 2 years or so. They're quite new. They cost £1 million each. They can be controlled with nothing more than a computer mouse. And they use these to practice their basic boat handling manoeuvres, as well as emergency drills like man overboard recovery, and just generally getting a feel for wind and tide. Also on the left-hand side we've got these blue-hulled sailing yachts. There's 5 of them here. These are also owned by the college. These are used to teach the cadets the more traditional aspects of sailing and navigation. We do quite often see these boats sailing up and down the river and along the local coastline as well. Now this section of woodland on our right hand side, this is known as Longwoods. Halfway, or a third of the way up the hill, you can make out the cutting for the steam railway line, which some of you may have been on this morning. You actually have a seal on the pontoon just to our right hand side. The local seals do quite often haul themselves out onto the pontoons for a bit of sunbathing. And they don't tend to mostly sessile or stunted oak trees. Now these trees actually give the river its name, with Dart being an old Celtic word for oak. This stretch of woodland also gives the river one of its other nicknames, and that's the Amazon. Back in the 1970s, this stretch of the river was used in a TV series called The Oneidin Line, and it was actually used to portray the Amazon. The producers reckoned that with the tide all the way out and the riverbanks exposed, plus a couple of strategically placed plastic palm trees and replaceable crocodiles, that this would look like the Amazon River. So that is what they did, and you are currently on a cruise up the Amazon. Quite a lot of the Oneidin Line was filmed in and around the Dartmouth area, so we will also be visiting later on in the cruise. house. The oldest part of the building are the 3 stone archways at the bottom, and they're actually used to top up a saltwater plunge pool that topped up at high tide. This was installed during the Victorian times. The Victorians were believers that bathing in salt water was a cure for various different illnesses. It was actually more just the fresh sea air that made seaside resorts along the south coast very popular. As I said, Greenway House, most famous for being the home of the late Dame Agatha Christie for a number of years. She was a Devon native, born in Torquay in 1890, very slim indeed. Now, as we turn around behind us, we'll get a better view of Greenway House. And over to the right-hand side is the village of Dittisham. It takes its name from a Saxon chief called Didas, and a ham was a settlement by the water. So Didas Ham, gradually over the years became Dittisham, often locally pronounced as Ditsum. For no better reason than we're just not very fond of long words down here. Now, it is one of those lovely traditional Devon villages, a very nice place to spend an afternoon, and you can pop into one of the local pubs. One of them is actually right on the waterfront. It's called the Ferry Boat Inn, or the FBI, known locally. But it's quite hard to spot. It's painted bright pink, but you will have a hard time finding it. Now, as we turn around and make our way back down the river, coming up on the right-hand side is the Anchor Stone. This is the rock formation with the red navigation mark on it. And there's several local legends about the Anchor Stone. One of which is that during the Middle Ages it was the local ducking stool for witches to test their guilt. But my personal favourite story about this is that it's historically been known as a Repentance Rock. And the reason for that is that if a local man was displeased with his wife for some reason, he would bring his wife out to Repentance Rock at low tide, tie her up to the rock, and hope she repented before the tide came in. If she did, she'd be set free. If she didn't, the man would be looking for a new wife. Now, that practice, of course, has long since ceased, supposedly due to overcrowding. That was Dartmouth railway station until the 1970s. Train station with no trains. But it was, in all other respects, a completely normal station. You could buy your tickets there, reserve your seats, and you drove to the water. And then instead of getting on a train, you'd have to get on a ferry, cross over the river, on the train at Greenway. This was used to portray Liverpool docks in the Obeidon line. This, as I said, is the Bayard's Cove. It's one of the oldest parts of the town of Dartmouth. It's actually from Bayard's Cove that the Mayflower sailed in 1620. Mayflower and the Speedwell were two ships originally in the expedition. They stopped here for repairs to the Speedwell, carried on as far as Plymouth. They had to abandon it altogether and carry on in just the Mayflower. We're now entering the much more expensive, more exclusive end of town. Most of the properties here on the right cost well into the millions. So naturally this is where I live. If you look up through the trees you can just about see my green tent. Quite a few of these houses are having construction work take place, either being rebuilt or renovated. And this is particularly difficult because most of these houses don't actually have proper road access. So all the building materials and machinery have to be brought out here by boat, which don't add a lot of expense to the project. But I think the owners of these houses don't particularly notice too much. Just to give you an idea of prices in this part of town. Look at slightly ahead of us to the right hand side, the sort of light stone coloured building with a couple of trees around it. That was recently on the market for about £5.5 million. So if you are on the lookout for some property in the area, there are some absolute bargains around here. does contain some of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. And guarding the river on either side we have the two castles here, Dartmouth Castle to the right and Kingsway Castle on the left. Now Dartmouth Castle is the third and smallest version to be built on this site. This one was actually one of the first castles in England to be built specifically for the use of cannons. But the cannons they had here at Dartmouth Castle were so famously inaccurate and unreliable that they gained themselves the nickname of murdering pieces. They tended to kill almost as many men behind the cannons as in front of them. Now this site is also home to St Petrock's Church, which dates back to the 12th century, and it is still technically in use to this day, although only occasionally in the summer months, as it has no mains electricity. Dartmouth Castle is open to the public. It is a very interesting place to visit, and does get some fantastic views out over the coastline and the mouth of the river. There's also a very nice cafe up there as well, so a very nice place to spend an afternoon. Kingsway Castle, much smaller, also built for defensive reasons to protect against the threat of British invasion. It was never actually used in that capacity. It was found to have been built in too much of an exposed position. It's now available to hire as a holiday home. So if you fancy playing King and Queen for a week, you can hire your very own castle. Now, as you can see, ladies and gents, we are making our way back in towards the town jetty in Dartmouth at the end of our cruise. I do hope you all enjoyed your time on board the Dark Explorer today. You will be pleased to know most of the commentary was actually true. Now, if you have enjoyed your time on board today, it has always been the tradition at the end of a river dark trip to place the captain's hat next to the gate as you disembark. Anything you care to place in there is of course purely voluntary, but very gratefully received, shared evenly between the crew and then hidden from all our partners at the end of the day. And finally, if I could just ask everyone to please remain seated until the boat is securely tied alongside, and we'll let you know once it's safe to dismount.